Welcome to this week's Archaeological News. As many of you know, I spent last week in Sicily and I'm working on a video about that particular trip. I visited some amazing Cyclopean walls, real ones, not like the ones I went to last year in Arice that weren't really Cyclopean even though the books say they are. In the meantime though, lots of interesting news stories have come out, so I wanted to cover a few of them in this video. I normally concentrate on the Neolithic and the Bronze Age because that's when the megalith builders were active and they're what interests me the most about the ancient past. I am the megalith hunter after all. However, every now and then I touch on other time periods because what came before and what came after the megalith builders are probably pretty relevant to the conversation. This week, a news item about Roman curse tablets and the Bible caught my eye, so I'm headlining with that. Then moving on to new research on Neolithic violence and some awesome exhibits and sites that have opened recently. I want to start by saying a big thank you to my patrons and channel members. You guys are amazing. If anyone else wants to join my community, I've put links in the description below. Let's get started. Could Roman curses have inspired the Book of Revelation? Michael Hulscher, a researcher in biblical studies at the Johannes Gutenberg University in Germany, may have found a connection between the Book of Revelation and Roman curse tablets. Last year I did a video on curse tablets in the Greco-Roman world, some of the best examples of which were discovered at the Roman Bath complex in Bath, England. So rather than just summarising the article, I'm also including some of my own details from what I've read on curse tablets, which help to give a bit of context to the research. Curse tablets were pieces of material, usually lead, which were inscribed with statements before being rolled up and deposited ritually in a sanctuary or a similarly significant location. These statements were usually inscribed by individuals or a specialist on behalf of an individual who wanted to implore deities for assistance with someone who had wronged them. Sometimes they were also used as love spells. Here's a rather scary example. So long as someone, whether slave or free, keeps silent or knows anything about it, he may be accursed in his blood, and eyes and every limb, and even have all his intestines quite eaten away, if he has stolen the ring or been privy to the theft. So this was written by someone who had been robbed and wanted to curse whoever had done it or witnessed it. Surviving curse tablets have examples of curses against thieves, business rivals, and sports competitors, amongst others. In the case of a theft, sometimes the person who created the tablet might also ask the deity to have the missing item or items returned. The examples from the Roman baths in Bath show that a lot of people got robbed of their valuables while they were in the water. Michael Hulscher has found similarities between the way that curse tablets were phrased and some of the text written in the Book of Revelation. For example, in academic circles, Roman curse tablets are referred to as defictiones, which means bindings in Latin. This is because their goal is to bind the subject of the tablet to do something. According to Hulscher, this language style is repeated in the Book of Revelation, where it said that God binds Satan. He also noticed that tablets mostly use all-inclusive statements when addressing the subject of the curse, such as male or female, free or slave. In a similar way, the Book of Revelation says that the mark of the beast will be imposed on all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave. Another example is the action of an angel mentioned in Revelation, who casts a stone to destroy Babylon. Similar types of actions were used in curse rituals. It's thought the Book of Revelation was written by a John of Patmos in the 1st century. The text prophesies the end of the world known as the Apocalypse and talks about the second coming of Jesus Christ. Another example of Hulscher's is the correlation between writing curse tablets and figures in Revelation having names or numbers written on their bodies, like the mark of the beast. Other academics think that the link between curse tablets and the Book of Revelation is tenuous and highly debatable. The research project is ongoing, so presumably there will be an interesting write-up at some point and we can see how much evidence Hulscher has found for his hypothesis at that time. Northwestern Europe was violent during the Neolithic. A new study in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences discusses the bioarchaeological evidence for violent conflict in Northwestern Europe during the Neolithic. It also suggests possible reasons why warfare became prevalent during that period. The Neolithic was, for a long time, viewed as a peaceful period in Europe. However, it's now generally accepted by experts that violence did occur beyond one-off events. The study examined more than 2,300 skeletal remains from 180 archaeological sites in Denmark, France, Germany, Great Britain, Spain, and Sweden, dating to between 6000 and 2000 BCE. Researchers found that 1 in 10 of the skeletons showed signs of injuries caused by weapons, such as blows to the head and penetrative wounds. The study suggests that lethal attacks probably took place between social groups, whereas non-lethal attacks took place within them. There are few survival benefits for a group to kill its own members. However, the evidence for violent deaths comes from only 1 or 2 individuals, not entire groups. The researchers suggest this still may indicate intergroup rivalry, since young adult males may have participated in warfare with a neighbouring group to elevate their status without having the intention of killing everyone in it. Research on the Neolithic has come to show that stratification did exist at that time as people accumulated wealth via agriculture and competed for resources. Demographics also shifted during the Neolithic with more adults and larger families. So it's also possible that wealthy men at the head of large families were able to take on more than one wife, causing men with less wealth to become jealous and disenfranchised. In a different study, sites of mass fatalities from the early Neolithic in Central Europe found that young women were missing from the demographic makeup of the settlements that had been attacked. Men, women, and children had all been killed, but young women specifically were missing from the graves. It's been suggested that young women were probably abducted as spoils of war in these circumstances, but it's difficult to know their fate after the attacks. So overall, it seems that plant and animal domestication in the Neolithic led to significant social changes, which in turn brought about more violence than had existed in the Mesolithic and Paleolithic. New exhibit at Orkney Museum displays Tomb of the Eagles artefacts. The Tomb of the Eagles, also known as the Ibister Chambered Cairn, sits above the South Ronaldsay Cliffs in Orkney. Discovered in the 1950s, the Neolithic site was found to contain numerous human remains and grave goods. It operated privately until 2020 before being closed. Its artefacts have now been transferred to Orkney Islands Council's Museum Service until a plan for the site can be outlined. Some of these objects have been put on display at the recently reopened Orkney Museum and include pottery and axe heads. The Tomb of the Eagles is named as such because of the eagle talons and bones that were excavated from within it. In addition, around 30 human skulls were discovered. A sustainable future for the site is now being planned in cooperation with the family who own the land and originally discovered the tomb. Major exhibition in Cambridge puts ancient Mediterranean islands under the spotlight. The Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge is due to host a major exhibition on the evolution of island identity in the Mediterranean. Centred on Cyprus, Crete and Sardinia, the display covers the period between the Neolithic and the Romans. The exhibit, which runs from 24th of February to 4th of June, includes one of the famous bronze figurines created by the Nuraghic culture in Sardinia, a Bronze Age pottery sherd with an inscription in the Cypro-Minoan script from Cyprus and copper ingots from Crete. Rather than focus on elite groups and power structures, the exhibit takes a different approach by looking at everyday life in the ancient world on these islands. Regional museums, archaeologists, curators, and local communities were all involved in choosing which artefacts should be loaned to the Fitzwilliam Museum and how they fit into the overall narrative on cultural identity. The project also culminated in the creation of art, poetry, and performances related to the subject matter. Thornborough Henges are now open to the public. The Thornborough Henges in North Yorkshire, England, have been donated to the public and are now accessible to visitors. Dating back to between 3500 and 2500 BCE, this Neolithic complex consists of 3 henges with diameters of 200 metres each, joined by avenues. 2 henges have been donated to Historic England by a construction company called Tarmac, and other parts of the site have been donated by Lightwater Holdings. For those of you not familiar with the Thornborough Henges, a cursus also existed at the site. This ran from the largest henge to the River Ur. Cursuses are mysterious ceremonial constructions often found near henges. Each henge has 2 entrances and is around 550 metres from the neighbouring one. Although they have a rough northwest to southeast alignment, there's a slight deviation in this that some researchers think is meant to mirror Orion's belt. Bronze Age structures have also been found at the site. That's it. So, the Book of Revelation and Roman curse tablets. I don't know. Perhaps they both do have certain formulaic aspects in common, but it seems a bit of a stretch. Let's take another look at it when published research comes out on that. The fact that there was violence in the Neolithic is interesting. Because monumentality was a characteristic of the Neolithic, we tend to think cooperation and peace must also have been important features of society then. Also, there's very little in the way of defensive structures from that time. However, the more stratified a society is, the more violence tends to become a factor. And there's no doubt that certain Neolithic groups did display a reasonable level of sophistication prior to the Bronze Age formations of state and the advent of written languages. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.